Most scientists.
Welcome, everybody, to our Yom Kippur annual Interfaith Dialogue with Congregation L'Dor Va-Dor and Rabbi Barry. I'm thrilled to have all of you together for this Interfaith Dialogue on Yom Kippur, L'Shana Tova, a happy and healthy one to all of you. Take it away, Rabbi Barry.
Hey, thank you for joining us, everyone. We've been doing this Interfaith Dialogue for years, and many people wonder why in the holiest day of the Jewish calendar do you have people who aren't Jewish on with you? And for me, this is the most Jewish thing we can do, to reach out to other people and to bring the religions of the world together. This was the dream of the prophets, and we're trying to do that today. We have very little time and a lot of speakers, more so than ever before. So I'm going to be very brief. And I'm going to mention that every speaker has 1 minute to respond to a question. And then afterwards, we're going to open it up to the audience. So we have, at least hopefully they'll be here, we have invited Buddhist Maya Malay, Catholic Paula Winker, Protestant Black activist Phil Dukes, Catholic working with migrants Rosa Maria Montenegro, Muslim Sheikh Shafayat Muhammad, Christian renegade, radical, heretic Fritz Aufdenkamp, and we have Mr. Interfaith himself, who's Buddhist, Christian, Jewish, atheist, and agnostic, all at the same time, Ted Brownstein. I probably missed a few or maybe included a few. We got all of them. Everybody's going to take 1 minute, but before that, we also have someone who's I've been working with the teachers, Steven Silverberg. We also comment on issues of the day. Right now, teachers are being besieged, and they're walking into the valley of the shadow of death. So I wanted to give Steven 1 minute to share his thoughts, and then we're going to open it up to the Interfaith Dialogue. Steven, take it away.
Wait, is it Steven Silverberg?
Silverberg with a B.
Yeah, I know.
Steven Silverberg.
I've got to unmute him, Barry, so.
You see him?
No, he is. Okay.
Stephen King is waving his hand.
Him. Stephen, please unmute yourself.
There we go.
Well, hold on. Stephen King can't hear for some reason. Do you know why?
Oh, there we go. So yeah, I just need permission to record this. It says that I need to request recording permission from the meeting host so that I can record what Mr. Silverberg's about to say and what you're going to say, Rabbi.
Wait. You have our permission, and you can broadcast it to the world.
Oh, I need like some sort of button needs to be pressed.
Yes, I know.
It says that.
Okay, go ahead. I made you a co-host.
Show me the thumbs up when you're ready, everybody.
It still says please request permission. Every time I click record, it says please request permission. I'm sorry. Maybe if I leave and come back, it'll help. I don't know.
No, I made you a co-host.
Or she can unmute. Try it again.
The other option is right after this is finished. If you're already recording, Ms. Leibowitz,
I'm already recording it.
Do you have the WeTransfer application? Would you be able to send me this file right after the recording?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll tell you what. Could I just give you a call when this is over, Ms. Leibowitz?
Yes.
I'll
chat my number.
Sharon, I just allowed him to record.
Okay.
Oh, I'm recording. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank
Go ahead,
Thank you, Emily. Good morning, everybody, and the best wishes for this special Day of Atonement. I wanted to say that I'm one of the 7 teachers that's being represented by Rabbi Attorney Silver, and we're so thankful for him to speaking for us all, because we do not believe it's safe to go back into the classrooms right now. And we're trying to protect not only ourselves, but the children and all the other employees in Palm Beach County. Mr. Silver, quoting a Jewish phrase in Yiddish, he's a real mensch. And we so much appreciate everything that he's been doing time-wise and effort-wise, and we're trying to just stay positive and keep the fight going despite what's coming out in the media, despite the lack of support from the Classroom Teachers Association, some of the nasty things that have But we know Barry is for us. He's for all the health and safety of all the children out there. And I just wanted to let you know how lucky you are to have him as the leader of your congregation. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Stephen. You know, a lot of teachers are really scared of retribution, retaliation. They don't want to speak out. They don't want to take a stand. Stephen came right out, led the charge, and it's a pleasure working with him. And thanks for being with us here today, Stephen. Now, the first question I'm going to ask to the guests, and also I meant to mention this also, I believe religion needs to atone for creating walls of separation and not building bridges. So this interfaith dialogue, specifically on the Day of Atonement, is to not only atone, but to do something about it and to bring people together. You will hear people express views that are different. We might challenge each other's views, but we don't challenge each other. We love one another, and the fact that we can exchange views means that we have a strong relationship. I'm going to ask the first question now. What should America atone for, and how can we fix it? And everybody has 1 minute to share an answer. Who would like to start?
I need to know who you're going to call on, Barry.
Let's call on Ted Brownstein. Can offer an answer to that. Ted
Yeah,
Brownstein, take it away.
Go ahead,
Thank
Ted.
you, Barry. It's delightful to be here today, and you always
Ted, we have a problem with your
great
internet.
bridge builder and bringing together a network of people. And
Ted, we have a problem with your internet. We're going to have somebody else jump in.
Okay.
Can I take this?
Who is there anybody else who will? Paula Winker.
This is
I just switched
Oh, go ahead.
my connections. Is that working?
Yeah, that's good. Go ahead, Ted.
Okay, great. So again, thank you, Rabbi Barry. I think from a Baha'i position, the oneness of mankind is the fundamental needs of our day. And when we look at the history of the country, I mean, it's been said so many times, our treatment of the Native Americans, our treatment of the slaves and the African Americans, and also basically the discrimination against every wave of immigrants that came into the country one by one. All those things can be posited as our national sins, if you will. So the action that fits to return would be to clearly state the oneness, to make friends and build relationships with other individuals and institutions across those interracial, intercultural, international, interreligious barriers, and to make the oneness of mankind a working day-to-day premise in our lives.
Thank you so much. Okay, Paula Winker, would you like to join in?
Yes, I was just thinking about the principles of Catholic social teaching, which states that we need to care for each other. We have a responsibility to care for each other. Ideally, it begins with the individual and moves into the family, and then, if necessary, moves into the community. And if we're not caring, if our needs are not met, it goes into the government. And these are the principles of Catholic social teaching, and we have not always followed those. So in sense of atonement, I think we need to look at where we have failed people who are hungry, who are not having the proper medical care, who are not getting the education they deserve, and those who have been discriminated against.
Thank you. How about Maya Malay?
Maya, go ahead.
Yes. Oh, thank you there. Good. Nice to be here with everyone. Thank you so much. And I did sign on just a few moments late, but if I'm understanding some of what the dialogue is, I think certainly from the Buddhist perspective, the idea that everyone's needs are important as our own, and that we listen, that we hear, that we look towards what others are requesting with some intention of how can we fulfill that, how we can accommodate that, how we can look to how to bend, how to be more flexible, how to be more open, and how to improve ourselves in the process, because it helps us become better, more conscientious in terms of kindness, loving, understanding, and mending those bridges that have been broken for far too long in many, many areas. So maybe that's what I would share with that.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
see
Maya.
Rosa Maria Montenegro. Would you like to share some thoughts with us?
Rosa?
Rosa Maria, ¿está ahí? Don't hear her.
How about Phil Dukes?
Yeah, let's try Phil Dukes. He's got to leave pretty soon. Phil, take it away and share some thoughts with us, my friend.
Well, listen, I am so excited about what we're about to do as we're dealing with these culture issues in America. You know, the sister that just spoke, Paula, when she was talking about the Catholic faith, you know, I'm a theologian. I'm a part of the Messianic faith. And Jesus taught us this. He said, who is Yeshua HaMashiach? He said, love ye one another as I have loved you. He also taught this. He said, love your enemies. And so in America, we have never had a love your brother movement. Now the hippies did, but as we're dialoguing this, we've got to really start teaching and tearing down the concept of race, because there's no such thing as the racist. It's the human race with many cultures. And as we come out of these dialogues and we begin to implement things, Operation Restore is my 501 that I founded to deal with things like this, to bring us into these disenfranchised communities and manifest love. That's what's going to change our society. And I'm not talking about a handout, but showing people that I'm concerned about you, especially when we deal with systemic bigotry, disenfranchisement, and racism in America.
You know, Dr. Dukes is someone who's in the trenches working with kids and with people who really are trying to get a chance to get ahead. And he does Operation Restore, working with Black youth, trying to help them move in a good direction. His time is limited, but I'm going to give him another minute. Phil, Dr. Dukes, I met Dr. Dukes when we were at a meeting with a lot of Black leaders, and he was commenting how they fail to realize about the anti-Semitism. They don't notice anti-Semitism within the Black community. I have great respect for him and what he's doing. Take another minute, if you will, to talk about Black Lives Matter and what's going on with institutionalized racism, if you would.
Well, now when we talk about, when we talk about Black Lives Matter first, I am a advocate for the concept of Black Lives Matter, because historically, Black lives in America was abortion. That's what slavery was. It was abortion of communities, of people, of human dignity. And Black Lives Matter is addressing that, but I am not a fan of the organization Black Lives Matter, because they don't hold my values. Black Lives Matter is a front for a whole nother concept, a whole nother ideology that they're using that as a front. And when you talk about dealing with the issues that they want to talk about dealing with, you cannot have any of that which you stand against you walking with you. And there is too much anti-Eurocentric Judaism and anti-white people, which I'm against that. I'm against all of that concept. When you have people walking with you and claiming that they're concerned about Black life, but they want to tell you, well, we don't want to deal with Jewish people and Jewish people this and Jewish people that. Listen, there are bigots of all culture, but they are not who they say they are. They're not. And if we band together here in Palm Beach County and create an example of what we're talking about, we're going to see a change. Because right now, these people who have other ulterior motives are using this for their own personal platforms. The systematic discrimination that has existed in America against Black people for a century, well, since the country was birthed, for their own personal platforms.
Dr. Dukes, we do appreciate what you're doing out there, and L'Dor Va-Dor will support you working with the Black youth and trying to bring people together. And I appreciate your message. I do want to ask the religious community now, what should religion atone for? And how can we fix it? I'd like the religious leaders to weigh in on this. What can religion atone for? How can we fix it? Maya, would you like to get us started on that one, please? Maya Malay.
Yes. I definitely see, and it varies according to Buddhist groups, even Western Buddhist organizations, but there's sometimes what appears to be a complacency, a sense of, in the tradition, too much non-activism in a way. And not to say that the old way of being active, often, especially if we look at the history of Tibet and Vajrayana Buddhism, and to some degree a passive response to a troublesome situation, to say the least, but that sometimes within the context of Buddhism in particular groups, there's a passivity, and even at times something that seems completely contradictory to some of the foundational Buddhist principles of dharna, of giving, of service. And often I've seen organizations pull back as a means of wanting to stay disengaged and uninvolved in political and certain situations that are more worldly, and just concentrate on the spiritual side and practice, or would steam that within the Buddhist tradition. And I think in a way we've done a disservice to the community and perhaps to the world too, in that regard. And that's where I would hope for my tradition, more of a voice would occur, and certainly more service in terms of activity in the world. You know, I know from coming somewhat from a Christian and a Hindu background as well, myself 10 years as a Hindu pujari, there was so much more emphasis on what to do to help the community, not just the people within our group or organization. And that's something that I think, you know, beautiful, that Buddhism's peaceful and not make waves and not make disturbances. But
Maya, I have to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's great.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. Thank you
No,
for your
that's all.
service. We have a question, Rabbi. We have Andy would like to.
No, we got to get an
question.
answer. He can, but first we got to get an answer from every person to that question. What does
It was a
religion
question
have
to the last one, though. Okay.
Well, real briefly, you asked me what our society should atone for. I think this, cut to the chase, the disenfranchised. I was watching John Lewis's documentary last night. The disenfranchisement of African Americans and Native Americans. Once that is honored, the solution will be manifest.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Ted, you want to speak on that one?
Well, you know, being a Jewish Baha'i, kind of stretching from ancient religion to relatively modern, you know, when you come on the scene pretty late, you have less history to repent for. And so the Baha'is have a fairly short history and came into existence in the modern era. And for sins of the Baha'i, it's on the level that Maya was talking about, of maybe a lack of effectively addressing the needs. There's certainly a lot of talk in the Baha'i community about acting on the ground and with people, and a lot of that ends as talk and doesn't get transferred into actual action, but there's a lot of activity that's taking place too. I think when we look at traditional scripture, you know, there's always, there are, in every book, there are probably things that are not palatable today. And so, you know, we need to be forthright with that, admit that, but then find a way to hang on to what's good in the tradition of the past and update it for the needs of the time.
Thank you. How about Paula Winker?
Yes, I was thinking about the question being, what do we of the religious have to atone for, or religions have to atone for? I think about in the Catholic faith, the Vatican II Council was, I think, about 1965. And one of the principles that came out of that was recognizing the wisdom of all faiths. And I really do not believe that we have done that as a Catholic community. As a Dominican, Saint Dominic was one who also believed in that we could learn from each other, and that there was wisdom among even the heretics with whom he was sent to, quote, bring back into the fold. And so I think that we have really been remiss in not really reaching out and appreciating and gathering the wealth and the wisdom that is available in all faith traditions.
Thanks. You know, I want to just mention that every person that I've selected is someone who's devoted their life, not just to their religion, but to interfaith harmony. And I have tremendous respect for Paula, for all she's done to bring people together, for Ted, and for everybody on this interfaith chat. These are not just ministers off the street. These are all ministers devoted, not just to their faith, but to humanity. And we have another one who just came on, my good friend Sheikh Shafai Muhammad. And I'd like him also to share what religion and what our nation, what America has to atone for. And you, I know it would take you an hour, but you got 1 minute to do it. So actually you got two, because you got one for religion, one for nation. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for inviting me and to be here, Rabbi Barry Silver. Actually, from a religious point of view, you know, my perspective on that, I don't think religion has anything to atone for, but basically the followers of the religion, they need to atone for misrepresenting the religion and doing things according to their own whims and fancies. From a nation point of view, leaders and politicians need to atone for misrepresenting their trust and their words and promise to the people, because many a times they say one thing before election and after they shake your confidence after election. So they need to atone for maybe lies, hypocrites in politics, and the things that they mislead people on. Other than that, it's a blessed responsibility to be in the leadership in a country and in religion. But when we misrepresent the religion and we misrepresent our position, we need to strongly atone for that. Thank you.
Sheikh Shafai, our country's lucky to have you. I think I might be the only rabbi that wrote a song in praise of a Muslim leader, which I'll share with you one of these days.
Yes, sir, of course.
Next, I'd like to have Phil Dukes, if you're around, if he's still here. Phil, I know how to leave. Is Phil Dukes still with us?
Yes, he is.
What does religion have to atone for?
Well, what the brother just said about religion is the individuals, because each religion has a concept of, from what I've studied, of helping the poor, helping the downtrodden, and loving your fellow man. And the participants of that religion need to repent, especially from the headship, because we do not teach seeing others as equal to ourselves, having the same needs and desires. Individuals need to repent, because each religion has some aspect and merit to it of goodness, but the people who are practicing it, we need to hold them accountable.
Thanks. Rosa Maria, Rosa Maria Montenegro, could you respond?
Rosa, you're unmuted. No.
All right.
Rosa, you can call in on the phone number.
Sharon, while we're waiting for Rosa, I'm gonna answer both of those questions now from the Jewish perspective, not the Jewish perspective, but just a Jewish perspective. As far as what the nation needs to atone for, the nation started out committing genocide and stealing the land from the native peoples here in arrogance, saying that they weren't the right religion and so they don't really count. And then we enslaved the blacks, again using the Bible, saying that they were the sons of Ham, and therefore the Bible says they should be enslaved. Then we didn't allow women to have rights, and again quoting the Bible, saying that a woman shouldn't be speaking out in public. So many things the country did stems from a religious interpretation. And then the original sin also is guns. We've used guns to settle scores, to slaughter buffalo, to wipe out Native Americans. And I don't think we've learned our lesson from any of them, because we haven't really acknowledged and atoned. We have to atone, admit, and then regret, and then we can move on. And I think part of the reason why we're struggling, because we sort of said we're sorry, but not really. We haven't really fully acknowledged what we've done. As far as the religion is concerned, religion has too often made claims that God is with them, that they know God and they're going to heaven and everybody else is going somewhere else, and that their book is God's book and everybody else's book is wrong. I think that as long as anybody claims that they have a book written by God, as long as people have that claim, we're all in a heap of trouble. Because once you think God wrote your book, then you're right and everybody else is wrong. And sometimes you'll even kill people if they're fighting against your book, then they're fighting against God. I don't see it so much as the people doing things wrong and the religion being pure. I believe that religion needs to evolve, because as conceived thousands of years ago, we had some notions that were very primitive, some good ones and some bad. We need everything to evolve. But if a book is seen as God's word, to me, that's idolatry. You're worshiping the book and you can never get past it. Now, the next question I would like to ask for everyone, you know we'd get kind of controversial here. So my next question is, should religion or religious leaders criticize our president? And should we also, in general, criticize what politicians are doing? But specifically, should religious leaders criticize the president? I'll have, let's have Ted Brownstein. Maybe you can start out.
A simple answer, yes. It's in the tradition of the prophets from Amos and Isaiah on to expose the moral weaknesses of the society in general and of the leaders of all stripes, whether it be political, religious, or economic. The thing that I think, and I think the Baha'i faith reflects it as destructive, is to take a partisan position where we support one plank of teachings from one side and are against the plank from the other side, and we get locked into certain vocabulary and certain stances. Well, the other guy advocated this, so it can't be good, I can't, and we get in those polarities. That's destructive. We need to be fair-minded, give credit where credit is due, even to people who may do very awful things on a certain issue. We may be able to make common cause with them on another. And so that in that way, we can really stand for the truth rather than just taking a side that increases the division of society.
Very, very well said. Thank you. Sheikh Shafayat. And also, I want you to ask, should we criticize the president? If so, what would you criticize about him? Go ahead.
Well, yes, I support the point that people should have the rights to voice their opinion on issues and matters for the benefit of their country, for the benefit of America and Americans. And hence, if the president goes off track, if the president goes off track, then we definitely have to comment on areas that the president made promises or lies or whatever as the case may be, because, you know, politics is a very interesting thing, very good thing, very nice thing, but can be a very corrupted thing if it does not work according to the Constitution and policies. So yes, people should have the rights in a very professional manner, a very diplomatic manner, a very democratic manner. And I want to mention that professional, democratic way they should be able to voice their opinion on issues.
Sheikh Shafayat, I just want to mention that I have taken the opportunity as a rabbi to criticize things that I find at fault in Islam, in Christianity, in Judaism, and many different religions. But to have a president castigate an entire religion and to single out Islam and to say that we have to figure out what's going on there, I find repulsive. And I'm kind of surprised that you're restrained. I guess you're being polite, but I don't know. If somebody criticized my entire religion, I'd be kind of upset about that. Do you have anything to say about that, about his criticism of the entire religion of Islam, where he doesn't criticize other religions at all?
Well, that's why I mentioned the point of well, I don't, for want of a better word, the easiest word is to say the hypocrisy in it, because especially in the case with our President Trump, you know, in some cases from a business point of view, he happens to be the best of friend with Muslims in Saudi Arabia, in Dubai, and other countries and other places when it comes to business and other personal relationship. But from a political point of view, you know, he made such statements against Islam and things against Muslims, which does not seem to be going, it does not add up, it does not go hand in hand. So something is definitely wrong. And I am sometimes puzzled myself as to how could he make such statements, and on the other hand, he does the opposite.
I just want you to know also, as a rabbi, we have your back. We know what it's like to have the government go after us. We're not going to sit back quietly and allow that to happen. We will stand up for our Muslim brothers and sisters. We might have difference of opinions, but we'll stand up for you and not allow anyone, no matter who he is, to castigate an entire religion, especially the way you preach it and you promote it in such a wonderful, peaceful way. I just want you to understand that we are with you, and I know that everyone here is as well. Paula Winker,
Rabbi?
would you?
Yeah, Paul
Yes.
has something to say.
Paula?
Go ahead, Paul.
Me?
Yes.
I was going to say, we have a duty. We have a duty to point out when our governmental leaders are discriminating against people and not following the basic concepts of loving our brothers and our sisters. So do we have a right? We have a duty to do that. And we do need to speak out for that. And we do need to be active in pointing this out to people who are our electors in the next few days.
Thanks. Maya Malay?
Wait, Rabbi, we have a question. We have Paul wants to ask a question. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, am I
Yeah,
okay.
you're on.
To answer Rabbi's question, yes, of course, clergymen have the right and the obligation to speak out against injustices, and especially when they're committed by our leaders. But I wanted to address another point that Rabbi made in his sermons. He seemed to denigrate fundamentalist Christianity, and I think that was unjustified. I think that fundamentalist Christians have been extraordinarily good friends of Israel. We should appreciate that. I'm sorry? I think that we should appreciate that. I think they've worked hard on this Middle Eastern peace settlement. I think we should, I'm a never Trumper, but I think that Trump has done a good thing with the UAE and Israeli peace agreement. He didn't do much except rubber stamp it, but at least it happened on his watch, and Kushner did a lot to bring those together. We should not ignore as Jews, we should not ignore our fundamentalist Christian brothers and sisters, because they have done a great deal to enhance the righteousness and the existence of Israel. So, Rabbi, I think I'd like you to address that issue. You seem to be very critical of fundamentalist Christianity, and I think it was unjustified. And I think that you should recognize very good deeds and the mitzvot that fundamentalist Christians have done for Israel and the entire world community. They have done a tremendous amount of work on this Middle Eastern peace agreement, and I think that you should address that issue.
I will address it, and I appreciate your comment. I want to get the other religious leaders to speak out on this final question that I asked, and then I'll be glad to address your question. I think Maya Malay, we haven't heard from you about should we criticize the president?
I think Maya is no longer on the call.
Okay, how about Rosa Maria?
Rosa is not, yeah, Rosa is
Maria
on the call.
Montenegro.
Rosa, can you speak up?
Okay. How about, I guess that's it. I guess everybody else has weighed in on it, right? Is there anybody else, any of the religious leaders want to speak out on that didn't, or are we good? Okay, let me address Paul's comment, and then I want the religious leaders then to share whatever thoughts they want about the new year, about what we can do in the new year and how we can all improve. Just any suggestions they have or any comments they'd like to make. I wasn't going to go into this, but I'm glad to respond to Paul. I do think it's great that the fundamentalist Christians support Israel. Of course, I believe they support Israel because they think it's a prerequisite for Jesus to come. And according to them, when Jesus comes, they'll live happily ever after and everybody else can literally go to hell. So I don't really care for their end view. I think it's morally repugnant. But if they want to support Israel in the meantime, I'll be glad to work with them. As far as the fundamentalist Christians' agenda, I find it also abhorrent. And I will fight it with every fiber of my being, as I've already done. If anything is accurate about Christian scriptures, if we can rely on it, which I don't, but taking it at face value, Jesus was a liberal. He is a classic Jewish liberal. He would have been out on the streets fighting for immigrants, fighting for the poor, fighting for gun control, fighting for the environment, bringing people together, preaching love. The fundamentalist Christians do the opposite on all of it, including abortion, which Jesus was pro-choice because he never mentioned it, and they're anti-choice. Fundamentalist Christians are going to succeed probably in wiping out abortion rights by using their malicious influence to put people on the Supreme Court who don't even recognize a right to choose because their Bible says women have not control over their own body, and they want to take this archaic notion and make it the law of the land. There's a guy named James Watt, who was the Secretary of Interior under Reagan, who's a fundamentalist Christian, who said that we don't need to worry about the environment because Jesus is coming back and he'll remake the whole thing. So we don't really care what happens to the earth because it's all nonsense anyway. It's going to be changed. They tend to love guns, which Jesus said you should turn swords into plowshares. They tend to have no respect for the rights of the poor. They support a president who puts immigrants in cages and separates them. I have no regard for what they've done. They've turned the lessons of Jesus on their head, and throwing a few crumbs towards Israel doesn't do it for me. And I'll be glad. I do have great respect, tremendous respect for Christians like Paula and Rosa Maria and so many Christians who actually understand what Jesus lived for instead of focusing on his death. He lived to make this world better, not to focus on some next one. So I love working with Christians. My dad was the first rabbi to do interfaith weddings probably in the country. I represented Westgate for 10 years. Christians have done so much to help this country, but the fundamentalist ones who think God wrote the Bible, it's a dangerous, dangerous ideology, one which I will always fight against. I'll talk to them and I invite them to dialogue. I hope they will. But as far as their agenda, no. Maya Malay, go ahead. Maya's still on and I think she can weigh in. So let's have Maya say a concluding comment if she could.
I don't have Maya listed. Oh, yeah.
She said
Okay.
I'm still on.
Maya, unmute
Great,
yourself.
good, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't unmute myself. Thank you. Back to the question maybe of should we speak up about the president and political leaders? And I would say most definitely. Certainly from a Buddhist perspective, the ability hopefully to cultivate a mind that's more objective without being able to decipher and determine between projections, opinions, mental fabrications, and from a peaceful state instead of one that's aggravated, irritated, or angry, allows to have greater clarity as to what is actually happening. And I think from that place of clarity, if we can maintain that, we see things much more clearly. And in that often are not only should, but are responsible to point out what is being seen. The emperor has no clothes. And to do it from a peaceful place often conveys the message in a way that if it was more opinionated or fueled with aggression, would be less likely to be heard. So I think it is so important to speak up and point out things that are going on and to help people correct distorted and disturbing viewpoints that aren't founded in more than mental fabrications, and to see what is so. So I think it's very important.
Maya, before you go, I just want to ask you something. You mentioned that sometimes the Buddhists are rather complacent. I love the Buddhists in that they care about the planet, the environment, and they're peaceful. I think it's awesome. But I was wondering if you think the concept of karma, the concept that if you accept things in this world, then you go on to a better place, is that part of the reason why they might be so complacent with what's going on in the world? And do you find that concept harmful and antithetical to activism to make the world better?
Yeah, I would hope it's not harmful, but if that's the way it's related to, it certainly could limit the effectiveness of helping assist and transform the suffering in the world and improving it. I would like to think that relevant to karma, Buddhists think in terms of earning merit, how to improve our karma. And with that, that's where we do start to consider words and deeds and actions that are beneficial, that are positive. So I would hope the idea of karma and the principle, the law of karma, starts to play out in terms of a motivational factor for all people, but certainly for Buddhists as well, and not lend itself towards more of that complacency of, oh, things just happen on their own accord, which really isn't what karma is about. You know, it's about the law of cause and result. And so, as Buddha said, if you want to know of your past, look at your present. If you want to know of your future, look at your present. So I think, I hope it would motivate people actually to give rise to more words, more actions that would produce the good results in the world and greater bonding of love and uniting of humanity.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask all the religious leaders now to share any thoughts they'd want. Take a minute and share what you're thinking about, like in the future. Where do we want to go? What should we be doing? How can religion help us move into a better future?
Well,
Okay.
Rabbi,
Yes.
you wanted to show the videos before we wrapped up. So do we want to do that now?
Yeah, let's do that. Well, you have good trouble.
Well, I was going to show the Ruth Bader Ginsburg video first,
Yeah.
and then John Lewis.
Okay, great.
You want me to show that now before you wind down with the participants?
Yeah, why don't we
Okay.
do that, and then we'll continue with the
Excellent.
talk.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So this is a recording that Rabbi made. We apologize. We don't have pictures up for it yet. He tried, but it didn't work out. So you're going to have to.
Let me tell you my story about a gal named Ruth, who was fearless in pursuing justice and truth. She devoted her life to taking up the fight, to helping the oppressed and doing what is right. In stature, Ruth may have appeared rather small, but in character and integrity, she always stood tall. She stood above the rest on the shoulders of giants, as she encountered prejudice with courage and defiance. Well, the first thing you know, she's on the Supreme Court, helping to ensure a woman's right to abort. Progressives who love freedom, she was a panacea, and even was friends with conservatives like Anthony Scalia. With intelligence and courage, Ruth was endowed. By protecting Jewish values, she made her people proud. Having faced discrimination, she knew how it feels. So she used her influence to promote great ideals. We all regret her passing, except for Lindsey Graham, who showed his claim of virtue is a lie and a sham. He said no to Obama and then showed that he's two-faced, when within a day of your departure, he says you should be replaced. And now it's time to say farewell to Ruth, our beloved. She will always be remembered with honor and with covet. For all her admirers, she never will depart. She will live on forever, deep within our heart. Among the nation's jurists, you are the very best. May your chutzpah inspire us, and your memory be blessed. You're all invited back again, and we will be delighted to celebrate her life as the Kaddish is recited. Y'all come back now, you hear, on Election Day.
Thank you, Sharon. And then you got one on John Lewis, right?
You want me to show the John Lewis right now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, hold on. I gotta find which one's the John Lewis. Okay, here we go.
Listen, children, to a story that took place not long ago of a man who achieved glory, challenging the status quo. John Lewis struggled to make changes but refused to take up arms. He used courage and nonviolence and faced assault from the gendarmes. Go ahead and love your neighbor, from a stranger make a friend. Make it your life's labor to see the day when hate shall end. Then you'll hear the trumpets blaring with the dawn of a new day, a world of peace and sharing. Let John Lewis lead the way. The people went where he did lead them. They learned John's nonviolent ways. He fought for voting rights and freedom from his youth till his final days. John Lewis wielded strength and power with tremendous charm and grace. Through him hopes and dreams did flower, and now this world's a better place. He made this a more perfect nation, as good trouble he pursued, and so he skipped the inauguration of a man who is lewd and crude. America reveres John Lewis, a great American of note. With high ideals he does imbue us. To honor him, let's go out and vote. Go ahead and love your neighbor, from a stranger make a friend. Make it your life's labor to see the day when hate shall end. Then you'll hear the trumpets blaring with the dawn of a new day, a world of peace and sharing. Let John Lewis lead the way.
Thank you very much, Sharon, for sharing that. I would like to get the religious leaders now to make some final comments, and then we'll take questions. Paula, would you like to share some thoughts with us?
I was going to say thank you, Barry, for allowing me to participate in the process of Yom Kippur, because the whole idea of being aware of where we have failed, what we have not done, and to make atonement and have new life and new rebirth moving into the future. So personally, this has been a beautiful experience for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chef Shafayat, would you like to share some thoughts with us? And thank you, Paula. Thank you so much for being here. You're an inspiration to us all. Thank you.
Well, as usual, it's always a blessing, an honor, privilege, and pleasure to be invited by you on Yom Kippur. For many, 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 many years, we have been doing this together. And I really want to thank you. I learn a lot, I benefit a lot, and it's a pleasure to be talking to everyone and participating on a holy and blessed day like today to share our views, opinions, and to learn from one another on this very blessed day of Yom Kippur.
Okay, thank you very much, Sheikh Shafayat. Sheikh Shafayat practices what most preachers only preach, and he's got the best yarmulkes in town. I really am. I'm very envious of him. Ted, would you like to share some thoughts with us? Ted Brownstein.
Yeah, Ted, unmute yourself, Ted.
Okay, there we go. Thank you again, Barry. It's so wonderful to be together with this mixed crowd and to break down barriers by our association together.
Ted's having internet problems.
We can more easily break these barriers down. So we need to continue to do that and find new ways to communicate in this modern age and the new technology and the new environment. But keep on with the same basic principles. Thank you.
Thanks. Ted runs is the leader of the Lake Worth Interfaith Network and has done so much.
Maya is just as active as I am in many.
Maya is as active. You founded it though, didn't you?
Well,
I got that right, didn't I?
I was one of 5, right.
I got something right. Okay, thank you very much. Is Maya still on? Can she share a few words or is she gone?
I do not see Maya.
How about Phil Dukes? I think he had to go too, right?
Phil is not on. No, but
Rosa Maria Montenegro, is she on?
Yes, she is.
Rosa Maria, share some thoughts with us.
Rosa?
Then we're going to take questions.
All right, so
he's not on anymore?
I'm going to put it on gallery mode. If you have a question, Paul has a question. So
okay.
He's had his hand raised for a while. So Paul, go ahead and answer your question.
You get a minute max for a question, or you can make a question or a comment. It doesn't have to be a question. Make a comment or a question or both, and you got a minute to do it.
It's a comment and on your comments about fundamentalist Christianity. When liberal Christian denominations were invoking BDS, Methodists, some Episcopalian congregations, the fundamentalists, Reverend Hagee, stood up against them, and he stood with Israel. I think that's a good thing. Yes, it's true that the Christians, fundamentalist Christians, eventually want to convert Jews to Christianity, but they know that's not going to happen. So their strong support of Israel is something that's very, very meaningful to me. I think we should reject BDS. I didn't see a lot of commentary on from the liberal Jewish community about rejecting BDS. And I would like to have you comment on the liberal Christian community's endorsement of BDS in some of the congregations.
Yeah, sure. I've denounced BDS. I've also shared Pastor Duke's concerns about Black Lives Matter as an organization. I know many Black activists who've also been concerned about their tilting towards sometimes violence, anti-white, anti-Semitic. I believe strongly that Black Lives Matter, and the movement I believe in. The organization I have some issues with. As far as BDS, yeah, I think it's a horrible thing. But BDS is not the law of the land. BDS is something that some people in the Democratic Party support. I don't, and I've criticized it. I'm not that worried about it because it's not the law of the land. What is the law of the land right now? We have a president who's doing things that are not, he's not some fringe within the Republican Party. He's doing things that are horrific. And one thing I forgot to mention about the fundamentalist Christians, perhaps I wasn't fair. I didn't give them credit for delivering to us the worst, most notorious, the most hideous, pathetic excuse for a president we've ever seen. And that's the one who's in the office right now. They're responsible for him. He's their creation. They take responsibility for a climate denier and a denier of the pandemic and a denier of women's rights. And a guy who thinks that his favorite president is Andrew Jackson, who's best known for letting the Native Americans go on a trail of tears and committing genocide, the only death march that we know of in the United States. That's his doing. And the fundamentalist Christians are responsible for that. So if they want to throw a crumb to Israel, it doesn't do it for me.
Not a crumb. Okay?
It doesn't do it for me.
It's not a crumb, Rabbi. Okay, they are unyielding and strongly supportive of Israel, and whereas some of the liberal Christian congregations,
the liberal Christians, right? I have a problem. I have a problem with, let's say, the Squad and some of the people in the Democratic Party who say that they're for civil rights and they criticize Israel. I do appreciate your mentioning that. And there are some liberal Christians who I understand where they're coming from. They think Israel's an oppressor, but I think they've got bad information. Israel does some things I don't like. I find the settlers very unsettling, and I criticize them. But Israel, compared to its neighbors, is a bastion of democracy. It's the only place where women are treated with equality, where you can practice your religion as you want. They have the holy sites of everybody there, and they respect them, and you can criticize the government and live to talk about it. Anyone who says they're for civil rights, especially liberal Christians and the Squad, liberal Democrats, should love Israel. And their vilification of Israel, I can find no other explanation for it other than rank anti-Semitism. Because if you look at the facts, it doesn't measure up. Anybody else want to share some thoughts?
Well, we have one more comment in response to you.
Paul,
and then
we
I'll
have
be
to
done.
go.
And
We
then
have
I'll
to
be done
move
for
on.
the.
We have other.
And then I'll be done for. I have one
Paul,
more
We have
comment.
other
and I'll be done.
questions. I'm sorry.
Go
We're gonna have to have other questions.
Go ahead. Who else?
Yes. Okay, go ahead. Identify yourself. I just tried to unmute you, Skiing 01.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Steve King. I don't know why I can't change it. Rabbi, I know that. Rabbi, I know this is about Yom Kippur. I appreciate you letting me listen in here. Just our other question, just for the news story we were going to do today, we were hoping we could ask right here, is just, what is your reaction to Justin Katz not agreeing to do a debate with you about the merits of the lawsuit? And what is your reaction to him calling the lawsuit a PR stunt and saying it's self-aggrandizing and saying it's basically without merit? So those two reactions, him saying those things about the lawsuit and him not agreeing to to the debate that you put forth. What is your reaction to that? Thank you so much.
Yeah, I want to thank you for being here and listening. You know, the reason why we have this problem in the schools is because President Trump says that the coronavirus is a hoax and it's going to disappear. And we have a governor who actually believes this nonsense, or probably doesn't believe it, he just follows along with it. Then we have a school board who follows along with them. Then we have a CTA who goes along with them. Then we have a principal who goes along. Nobody is willing to stand up. So as far as I'm concerned, the CTA that's supposed to protect the teachers, they should stand for cowardly, timid appeasers. They're just not supporting the teachers. I've got hundreds of calls from teachers saying the CTA doesn't help them. And so instead of doing their job and responding to the facts, they criticize me ad hominem and they go after me. So you can see here, I like dialogue. If Mr. Katz has an issue with me, I'm happy to dialogue with him and let's debate and let's let everybody decide what's going on. As far as I'm not supporting the lawsuit, I was just so disappointed that the Classroom Teachers Association doesn't support teachers. They're walking into the valley of the shadow of death. This is really horrific, and it's going to become a super spreader of disease. It's already happening now. They should be helping that. So he needs to actually do his job and support the teachers. We need to atone. Everyone needs to atone, including the CTA. I'll atone also for not doing as much as I should to do things properly, and they need to atone also. And the best way to atone would be to engage in dialogue with the teachers instead of shutting them out and shutting out the effort to try to bring legality to correct the situation. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Rabbi. I'm going to go put this story together. I appreciate it, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Happy Yom
Thank you,
Kippur.
Steve.
Thank you.
Who else
Thank
has
you.
a question?
Just raise your hand up so I can see it. And okay. Let me know who wants to speak. Any questions here?
Valerie.
Okay, Valerie, go ahead. Let me unmute yourself, Val.
Well, this was certainly a very, very interesting discussion group, and I really, really enjoyed it. The one thing that I always take exception to, and I have a hard time in general with this, is that the word love is bandied around so often. And you're talking about huge amounts of population and huge amounts of opinions and huge amounts and unbelievable amounts of different perspectives. And I think the words that really need to be utilized more, I don't hear enough of it, is the word tolerance and the word understanding. Because in my opinion, love is a result of those two aspects of where we need to go. Love is an end game. I cannot see myself very honestly loving certain things and certain people and certain of our entire society. So I just think the word love is just being overused. That's my opinion. Tolerance and understanding are the words that I think are the starting points for all of this to start to happen.
Yeah, thank you so much. Any religious leaders want to weigh in on that or share a thought on that? Okay, thank you. I think it's a really beautiful comment. Tolerance is, obviously, it's like you don't necessarily like them, you're willing to tolerate it. So it's kind of a lukewarm type of thing, but I agree with you, it's got to start there.
Starting point. You've got
right,
to start.
exactly. It's a starting point. Also, Fritz Alftenkamp isn't on, but he mentioned that if you believe in a God who's going to send non-believers to hell, and only Christians go to heaven and non-believers, including Jews, go to hell, that's not tolerant, and that's not loving. That's not a loving concept. That's why he's a heretic. He rebelled against that. And I think that's in all of our religions. It's in Judaism too, that God sentences certain people to death because they don't believe the right way. And I think you're right, Valerie. This concept of love, it's overused. Stop telling me that you love me if you think I'm going to go to hell. Don't talk to me like that. It's insulting. All right, who else? Who else wants to share some thoughts?
Oh, geez. Oh, boy. Sorry, guys. Okay. Is that your hand raised? I can't tell. Ron, is that your hand raised?
Marlene wants to speak.
Okay, Marlene, go ahead. Unmute yourself, Marlene.
Okay, I just did that. Thank you very much, Rabbi. As always, this has been an eye-opener and a mind expander. However, the gentleman that is the fundamentalist, I have to disagree with him. Our president is the president of the United States and has done great damage to the ethics of the United States. For not only the years that he's been president, but for years beyond. I believe in Israel. I want Israel to exist forever. They are a wonderful, strong nation. And the reason that the president wants a peace prize and has done what he's done for Israel is money. Because he hasn't helped with the Palestinian issue. He's only worked with the people that could make money for whatever. I just get very upset and I lose a lot of sleep over this. But our country is a great country. We have our faults. And when we say love, we mean we have to tolerate everybody. We have to hope that everybody is well, so that if they're well, we're well. If you're walking down the street and you see people lying on the street that are injured, that are hurt, that are hungry, it's not good for you either. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Marlene, for those beautiful comments. Anybody else want to?
We have Gloria Stein that has had her hand raised for a while. I'm sorry, Gloria, I did not see you. Can you unmute? Go ahead, Gloria.
I don't have a camera, but I do have a mouth and a mic. I just want to say.
You'll have to speak up, Gloria. We can barely hear you.
You can't hear me now?
Go ahead.
Louder.
Okay, I'll shout. I'm good at that. Anyway, as an activist, I just wanted to tell you about a Buddhist saying that stuck with me for years. And it is, if you see something and don't do anything, you are not really seeing. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have Ron Chasen. Go ahead. He's got a name of Laurie Tucker. He is not Laurie Tucker. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, sorry about that. I tried getting on earlier and then I had to leave. I had a business call I had to take and then came back. I couldn't get back on after that. It keeps saying that the host will let me in, but she doesn't do that. Yeah, anyways, yeah, what I was curious about that, I know that Dr. Robert Watson was supposed to join the fray today. Has he already been on, or is he?
No, he was on the service this morning.
Oh, on this morning's service?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, we misunderstood that then.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'd also had some comments from phone calls and texts to people I sent this out to. I sent it out to probably 140 people, and people had come on at 12 o'clock, and they had the time that he was going to come on, and they wanted to know what was going on. So I need to get back to them as well.
No, they can watch the service this morning anytime, Ron. And Dr. Robert Watson was included in this morning's service. He gave a very lovely message to congregants and L'Dor Va-Dor.
Thank you, Sharon.
Who else?
Okay. Okay. Paul has his hand raised. Paul?
Continue watching.
And Sandra is next. Paul, if you can you unmute or not? Okay, try. Go ahead, try now.
Okay.
Go ahead, Paul, you're on.
Okay, good. I was unmuted by the host. I wanted to respond to Marlene's comments, and I thought they were very good. When you see somebody lying on the street, you have to help them. And let me tell you, as somebody who served in the military, not in combat, when you're in the foxhole, and in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and the rest of the world deserts you, as they did to Israel, and there's one group that jumps in the foxhole with you, okay, and fights off the enemy, you better have respect for that group. Forgetting about all the other mishigas that they follow, and I don't subscribe to any of that. But if somebody's willing to jump into the foxhole with you and defend you and defend your life and your country, and fortunately, Israel does have respect. Reverend Hagee is honored in Israel. He meets with Netanyahu all the time. Israel has really been under the gun for thousands of years. And to have one friend to jump into the foxhole with you when you're surrounded by a lot of enemies, I think that's much more important than the political views of that person, okay? Because if you don't allow them in the foxhole, you're not going to survive.
Let me just respond to that without beating a dead horse. Hagee has said that God doesn't listen to the prayers of the Jews. To allow him to speak on the occasion when the embassy was transferred to Jerusalem, which I support. I supported President Trump on that. But he appointed a guy, Hagee, who says God doesn't listen to the prayers of the Jews. So on the biggest day of Israel, Jerusalem is the capital. You have a guy like this. If I want a guy in a foxhole who thinks that I'm not respected in some way, or he's threatening me, that's dangerous. Now, one other thing. The greatest scientists in the world happen to be in Israel, I think. And in the United States. And they all agree that climate change is a big problem. Netanyahu said it's as grave a threat to Israel as the Arabs. The fundamentalist Christians support a president, support policies that are against climate control. They're against that. That is a grave threat to Israel. So if they're supporting a president who's going to allow climate change to run rampant, that'll destroy Israel. This is a grave threat to Israel and the whole world. So yes, I will thank the fundamentalist Christians for helping Israel, but I wish they would help Israel and the planet and all life by stopping their support of a guy who's a climate denier. It's reckless, it's irresponsible, and to praise creation and to say you love the creator while you're helping to destroy creation is not a good thing. And so we need to pick our friends. And I like what they're doing for Israel, but the rest of it I don't like. And it's not just policy. It's not just policy. They are the greatest threat to the lives of my children, your children, and future generations on Earth because they're not addressing climate change. And that's not just a policy distinction.
All right, we have a lot of hands raised.
Go ahead.
Rabbi. We have Sandy, then we have Edna, then we have Jerome Bernstein. So Sandy Fisher, you're on.
I turned it. I'm sorry I missed the beginning. I couldn't make it, and I'm very sorry I missed it. I was looking forward to it. I have two questions. Number one, we received our ballots. How do you, where do you think what we should do to send them, how to send them in? And the other question is, the people are protesting against Netanyahu in Israel. What do you think of that?
They always do. And he gets it all the time.
The ballots,
let Rabbi.
The ballots you should drop off personally if you can. If they have places where you can drop them off personally. But we're going to have people on L'Dor Va-Dor who are specialists in voting and making sure your vote counts. But the main thing is make sure you vote and get other people to vote also. Yeah, Netanyahu, he's got some opponents. The liberals don't care for him. I actually like Netanyahu in many ways. I think that his strong stand for Israel and against Israel's enemies. I like a lot of things about Netanyahu. I'm not one of those who's a anti-Netanyahu guy. All right, who else wants to share?
Edna,
Edna,
you're
go
on.
ahead.
Just to answer Sandy's question, once the early voting starts, Sandy, there will be a place outside of the early voting places for you to drop off your ballot. You don't even have to go in. You can just drop your ballot in those boxes. Edna, go ahead.
Give it to early voting.
Edna?
Well, someone else was speaking, so I was holding off. I just want to wish everybody Lashana Tova, and you should have a very sweet and healthy year, number one. Number two, you have to balance things. Fundamentalists have one good thing, and God knows how many bad things. And we have to also remember, we are Americans. I love Israel. You know, Sam and I went to Israel and spent a lot of time there. But we are still Americans first. And you must always remember that.
Right.
I find the fundamentalists very dangerous. And I just have to, everybody remember, God bless the USA. That's what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Edna. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you. Jerome Bernstein, do you want to speak before Esther Goodman? Jerome, you need to unmute yourself. You had your hand raised? Okay, go ahead, Jerome. I can't hear you.
You hear me now?
Yeah, make it a little bit louder. Yeah.
All right, a little bit louder. How's that?
Yeah, it's a little bit louder than that. Yeah.
Whoa.
Get closer to the mic or pick it up. Okay. Go ahead, Jerome.
Okay. One of the things that you said, Rabbi, was that all the people in Israel agree that climate change is no doubt. There are people.
A little louder, Jerome.
There are scientists all over the world who believe otherwise. But the fact is that climate change we know is here, whether it's due to tilt of the Earth's axis or due to volcanoes and under seizing of masses. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a different screen up all of a sudden. Anyway, the question that comes to mind is the criteria that you're using to criticize President Trump. Well, those are the same criteria been considered during past administrations. I just want to remind you that one of your favorite people probably is Barack Obama, who not too long ago just purchased some prime beach property on Martha's Vineyard. And he is supposedly somebody who believes that probably Martha's Vineyard will be flooded. Is it that he's a poor idea of what should be a smart investment, or does he know otherwise? It would be interesting to know why Barack Obama would have chosen something. I have other questions, but this is the first that comes to mind. So perhaps you have some ideas on that.
Yeah, I just had a dispute with a friend of mine who loves Obama, and she gets very mad at me because I criticize him. So I'm not lockstep, and I agree with very much with what Ted said. Ted Brownstein said we should criticize our leaders, but not base it on partisanship, not just criticize everybody who's one party or not. I criticize both. I didn't like Obama's treaty with Iran. I spoke out against it, as did my son Ari. I don't like his health care plan. I support universal health care, not making everybody have to pay for insurance, which I think is mindless. I didn't care for his minister, Pastor Wright, and I think he should have spoken out against him. And there were a lot of things that I didn't care for. But Trump isn't a league by himself. He's not just a bad president. He's virtually the epitome of evil. He's like the Antichrist. And to hedge or haw about it is just appeasing evil. So that's why I disagree with what you're saying. As far as climate change goes, I don't know about everybody else here, but I'm just totally fed up and tired when California is ablaze, when the Amazon's burning, when the forests of Australia are burning, and anyone comes on and says, well, we don't really know, there's a difference of opinion. I'm tired of it. There is no difference of opinion. There's only fact and fiction. And every scientist, except somebody on the payroll of the oil and gas industry, knows it. If you open your eyes and you see glaciers melting and you see ice retreating over Antarctica, if you just open your eyes, there's absolutely no doubt, except for people who are just trying to fool you and lie to you and call things like corona and climate and everything else a hoax. There's no doubt. Israel has long past ended debating. The whole nation is destined to make the whole country carbon free. That's what they're working on. They're not debating anymore. They know that climate change threatens their country. And we need to come around to and join the rest of the civilized world. Every country in the world joined onto the Paris Accords except the US. That's a shame and a shock. And I'd be interested in, I know we have Sheikh Shafayat on, maybe you'd like to share some words about this also and weigh in on it. And Ted and Paula, what you think about it, because it's just shocking to me that people would deny this.
Am I still unmuted? Can I speak again?
Yeah, Jerome, you're unmuted.
Good.
Would anybody else?
One of the things in California.
Jerome, you've got to pick up the mic closer to you.
One of the things in California that's been brought out was the poor forestry that's going on. A lot of that could have been prevented. We know that these fires have happened every year, even before this administration. We also know that there has been climate change over the life of this planet, back and forth many times. And we see that in the various canyons and so forth, where you can see layers of where the sea had actually been inland seas. So we know that climate change is inevitable no matter what. And whether or not it is us that is causing this, whether it is because of the greenhouse effect is doing this, is something that hasn't been explained as yet fully. And I might remind you that a very famous Italian scientist, who you know in Pisa, had bucked the administration at that time by being against science by consensus. At that time, theology was the queen of the sciences. And we know that anybody who was against the theology was also liable for a death sentence.
Jerome, we have to cut you short because we have other people that really would like to.
Anyway, I'll leave you with that.
Well, let me just
Science
respond.
by consensus.
Let me just respond in like 30 seconds, okay?
Sure.
And I apologize to everybody else for even having to do this. But to suggest that there's any doubt about it, Carl Sagan said when CO2 levels go up, climate change happens, and he predicted disaster. We all know it. There's no debate. Just turn off Fox News, wake up. There's no debate. And as far as whether the natural changes in the atmosphere, yes, you're right. There has been climate change before under natural circumstances. It takes millions of years. What we're doing is we're flooding the Earth with CO2, and those changes now are going to take decades. And Florida used to be underwater. That was a natural thing. It's not natural for our time period. Right now, if Florida was underwater and all the coastal cities were underwater, which was natural in the old days, if you raise the level of CO2, we'll put every coastal city underwater on Earth, and you'll have 2 billion climate refugees. Death is natural, but it's not a good thing. This is a horrible thing that's going on, and to excuse it, explain it, cloud the issue is dangerous nonsense. We need to wake up and we need to protect ourselves because the future is now.
Right.
Who else?
Right.
Okay. We have Esther Goodman, who has been waiting very patiently. Esther, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Rabbi Barry, Stan and I, we're in New Jersey right now, but we've enjoyed your talks very, very much at the ACE program at the JCC in Boynton Beach. And we enjoyed the service, so thank you for including us. I would, I think it probably is pretty obvious, but I would love to hear your opinion on what long-term effects the new supposed Supreme Court Justice, Coney Barron, is going to have on Jews in particular.
Well, Jews care about healthcare, so healthcare is out the window. Jews care about abortion rights and women's rights. That's out the window. Jews care about the environment. That's gone. Jews and everybody else are going to suffer. The Constitution, the interests of Jewish people are going to suffer. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a champion of Jewish ideals, and we supported her and loved her. This new person goes against everything that she and Jewish idealists believe in. So it'll be disastrous.
So we should be afraid.
Want to weigh in on that? What
So
about Paula? Ted, what's your thoughts on this?
Let me see if Paula's still on.
Ted's on. Go ahead, Ted. What do you think about all this?
Going back to the issue of climate change, that we know there's no doubt that the Earth is getting warmer. The glaciers are melting. The icebergs are falling off of the North Pole and Antarctica and all that. And unfortunately, when it comes to business, the money interests will deny anything that costs them something. So if they have to put on pollution controls or they have to restrain their behavior in some other ways, that's going to cost them money, they become deniers. They're anti-labor, they're anti, environmental regulation, they're anti, and their whole deregulation platform is saying, well, nothing else matters except the bottom line dollars, and we're going to stimulate, the economy at the cost of all other values. And I don't really think that reflects any spiritual heritage. We know that money is an important part of life. It's power, but it has to be used like any other kind of power with restraint and with an ethical context. And it can't be the do-all and be-all.
Thanks. Who else?
Can I just say something?
Go ahead, Marlene.
21 years ago, we took a trip to Alaska and we were on the glaciers. Helicopter dropped us off and we were walking. And the young woman that was our guide told us to follow her very carefully because there were blue spots along the top of the glaciers. And we didn't know what that was. And she explained it was the melting at that point, 21 years ago. And she said we have to be very careful because in that spot, it was very soft, it wasn't solid, and the blue colors, whatever it was pointing it out. When we were on our ship and we saw the calving, so the guide had said that calving was so unusual at that time. So you can imagine what's going on now. And those who deny climate change, I don't know where they live. I'm sorry for being so out
Thanks,
loud.
Marlene. Thanks, Marlene.
Who else?
Carol has her hand up, and then we'll go back to Paul. Carol Levy, unmute yourself, honey.
Okay.
You're on.
Getting back to the
You're
woman
on,
who
Carol.
was worried about, getting back to the woman who was worried about her ballot.
A little bit more volume, Carol. We can barely hear you.
I gotta turn up the volume. That's how do we do that? Seth?
Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead,
wait.
Carol. Go ahead.
Wait. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Getting back to the participant who was worried about her ballot, I have the dates for early voting, if she'd like to have them. It's early voting begins on 10/19 and ends on 11/1. So if you want to go to the early voting site nearest your home, you go to the Supervisor of Elections website, and it'll tell you which is the location. And you can drop your ballot right in that box right by the early voting site. Okay?
Okay. Thanks.
You are.
Thank you, Carol. Paul?
Hey, Sheikh Shafayat, you've been kind of quiet. Why don't you share some words of wisdom with us from the good books?
I am just enjoying the conversation. I really do. So I'm on the listening side here right now. I'm enjoying it.
All right. Good.
Thank
Who
you,
else?
sir. Okay, Paul, go ahead. Unmute yourself, Paul.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are some other places that before early voting begins where you can drop off your ballots. I think the Hagen Ranch Library is one of them, but maybe somebody knows this better than I do. I'm glad that I really agree with Barry's final comment on the fundamentalists and his praise for their involvement with Israel and his disagreement with their issues on everything else. I think Rabbi Silver were a complete accord on that. And I'm happy to see that. And I liked your comments on Jewish values with the new Supreme Court Justice, anti-abortion, et cetera, and your commendation of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We're very close together on this. I was puzzled by your comments on your comments on the Kerry Obama Iran nuclear deal. Most liberal Democrats supported that deal, and it seemed to have worked. I liked that deal. I thought it was a good deal. All of the inspectors, international, US, some of the Scandinavian countries who were involved with that, all of them said that Iran was not violating that accord. And they went on to say that it was in the US and Israel's best interest to have a good, vibrant economy in Iran where the populace was happy. What's happened now is President Trump, and I think you're supporting that position, has rejected the Iran nuclear deal. And what's happening now is that Iran is building up a huge stockpile of nuclear weapons that was much worse than it was before. And we've imposed really bad sanctions on Iran, which has allowed their domestic economy to crumble. And a lot of dissent has been created. This is only fomenting trouble in the Mideast. Could you please explain your rejection of Obama's and Kerry, and Secretary of State, then Secretary of State Kerry's Iran nuclear deal?
Thanks, Paul. First of all, I just want to thank you for sharing views that are contrary to mine and contrary to other people, and doing so in a calm manner and an intelligent manner. We don't see that very often. We usually see somebody who will disagree with someone get in.
They're not all that contrary.
We disagreed on certain things, but we agree on
No,
others.
we agree on the fundamentalists. We agree on the fundamentalists.
Yeah.
I listened to your comments very carefully. You supported the fundamentalists' involvement and pro-Israel position, and you rejected their climate change and abortion. And I completely agree with you. We are in 100% lockstep on the fundamentalists.
Very good. Okay. Anyway, as far as Iran is concerned, at the time of the Iran deal, the proposal was to free up billions of dollars for Iran, who was using it to support Hamas and terrorist groups and doing hideous things with it. I find it difficult to appease evil. I don't think it's a good idea. Plus, the agreement was fraught with all types of exceptions, and they were going to be able to build up nuclear weapons anyway with the deal. I thought the deal was really bad. I thought when the Iranian people started to revolt against their leaders, we should have joined in and toppled that regime. The regime is despicable. And I wanted to do everything we could to topple it. What the deal did was it allowed them to stay in power, strengthened them, made it almost impossible for anyone to take over that regime. And it allowed them to have a deal where it was filled with loopholes. So I was not a big fan of that one at all. However, today, the deal, if you take either the deal that we have now or nothing, the deal is better. There is no movement to topple the regime, and it does provide some safeguards, but I think we need to be much tougher on Iran. So I would not favor getting rid of the deal now and replacing it with nothing, but I think we should be much, much tougher on Iran. I also think it's really mindless to fight wars in Iraq and Afghanistan against radical Islam without talking about what the issue is and the underlying causes. Why don't we talk about the cause? We've been fighting in Afghanistan for years. Have we got any closer to peace? And what about Iraq? How many thousands of people died and how many billions did we spend for nothing? All that happened was you now have a chaotic place, and all the lives lost and the money spent didn't mean anything. The cause of Iraq and Afghanistan is fundamentalist religion. And fundamentalist religion emanates from the Jewish scriptures. The Jewish scriptures are extremely bloody and violent. Deuteronomy is a blueprint for ISIS and Al-Qaeda. So if you want to deal with Iraq and Afghanistan, here's what you need to do. The Jewish people need to atone and say, this stuff about killing non-believers and God not liking them, it's wrong. It's wrong. We repudiate it. We reject it. We atone. And let's get the Christians and Muslims to do the same thing. And then we could get to the cause of this. Because you have kids right now who are learning nonsense and learning to hate other people and learning that their God wants them to kill other people. That's the cause. And if we don't get to the cause, nothing else is going to really work. So I hear what you're saying, Paul. It's not a simple question. But right now, the deal is about the best thing we got. But I'd rather be really tough on Iran.
I'm just unclear on your position. Do you favor the Obama-Kerry-Iran deal? Would you like to see that restored, or
no? At the time, I thought it was horrible because it was an effort to topple the regime, and we supported it. But now there is no such movement to topple the regime, and now it's either that or nothing. So I'll take that. Or I don't think it's a good idea to remove the deal unless you have something better to replace it with.
So you're in favor of restoration of that deal?
No, I'm in favor of making it much tougher. I don't like that deal. I believe in a much stronger deal, telling them to stop supporting terrorists. Otherwise, we're not giving them any funds. Okay.
Rabbi,
I think we're done, right? Or does
yes.
anybody want to conclude?
Before,
Sandra.
Sandra, go ahead. Let me unmute Sandra, and you're the last one, Sandra.
Go ahead.
Yes, hi, Jen. During Trump's impeachment, I called a number of the Republican senators pleading with them to impeach Trump. And I saw it got me absolutely nowhere. I was following the proceedings. Anyway, is there something I can do and my friends can do? Because my friends are all very frightened. My daughter's an attorney in New York. She's frightened. We're all frightened about another win for Trump. What could we do, is there something I can call these Republican senators, or anything I can do to try to have them be a little bit pro-democratic instead of fascist?
Ted, why don't you want to comment on that? I mean, what everybody should be doing is telling all their friends to get out and vote. So there are things we can do.
We plan on voting, but we wanted to do something else.
No, it's more than just voting. It's not just voting. Call up the Congress people and tell them not to support people that you don't like. Call up your friends. Join a Democratic club or an organization that's helping to spread the word. Don't just vote. Don't just vote. Get involved and maximize your influence and do as much as you can. And if you belong to a congregation, tell your rabbi, your minister to speak out on these issues and not be quiet. Because all that's necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. So encourage everybody to do something and to get out there and speak. But voting's good, but it's just the beginning. Sharon, do you want to wrap it up, or the religious leaders?
I would like to wrap it up. I'd like to invite everybody to our beautiful Yisker Memorial and Ne'ilah concluding service. You can watch it at any time from our l'dorvador.org link. I would like to end this event, this program, and I thank you all for your wonderful participation, and thank you, Rabbi Barry, for inviting so many wonderful leaders and everybody being part of this discussion. I'd like to end with a video called Good Trouble. It's basically a phrase made famous by John Lewis. It's a beautiful video that we have, and I'd like to end it with that. And I'd like to wish you all Lashana Tova and a beautiful and a safe and a peaceful and a COVID-free New Year.
Sharon, I just want to thank my guests. I want to thank Sheikh Shafayat for being here. He runs something called Al Hikhmat. And those of you who know Hebrew know Chachma is wisdom. Al Hikhmat is wisdom. I encourage you to support what he's doing. He's got international TV and he's doing great work out there. He's the hope. He's the hope for humanity of bringing Jews and Muslims and Christians together. Support what he's doing. And Ted Brownstein has been doing so much for interfaith work in the Lake Worth area and here and bringing people together. Paula Winker, support what she's doing. She's helping to bring people together and supporting dialogue. And Phil Dukes is working with the underprivileged and bringing religions together. Rosa Maria Montenegro works with the migrants. Support these people. And I thank all of you for being on. I thank the religious leaders for being here. And I thank all of you for joining us in Interfaith Dialogue. Stay in touch. We want to hear from you.
Okay. Here is the last movie.
Gonna make good trouble, talking about good trouble. Gonna be good trouble, coming your way. We don't agree with your choices, so we'll keep raising our voices, bringing some good trouble to you today. You know we're watching, you know we're listening, you know exactly what we mean. We've had enough of this nightmare. We're standing up for our American dream. Gonna make good trouble, talking about good trouble. Gonna be good trouble, coming your way. We don't agree with your choices, so we'll keep raising our voices, bringing some good trouble to you today. You know we're watching, you know we're listening, and when that vote comes around again, you know there won't be any question. What you do now will keep you out or keep you in. Gonna make good trouble, talking about good trouble. Gonna be good trouble, coming your way. We don't agree with your choices, so we'll keep raising our voices, bringing some good trouble to you today.